Real Time 1960s presents Evening Report, a complete roundup of today's news with Joe Rubenstein.
Good evening. In Washington, the Senate rejects President Kennedy's health care bill. In Cairo, President Nasser threatens Israel. Across the Atlantic, Europeans get a live look at American baseball. Dr. King addresses the National Press Club. The Soviets bolster links to Cuba. And the Baseball Hall of Fame has 4 new members. Those are the headlines. The details after this message.
Watching your baby grow stronger with those first few steps. What a wonderful feeling. Like the good, warm feeling that comes with happier meal times. The beech nut feeling. Because beech nut caters to your baby's taste, he eats better, gets more nourishment. You're happier. That's the beech nut feeling. The good, warm feeling that comes with happier meal times. For better nourishment, beech nut caters to your baby's taste.
On Tuesday, the Senate voted to kill the president's program of health care for the aged through Social Security. The final tally was 52 to 48. An hour later, a grim President Kennedy made a statement at the White House.
I believe this is a most serious defeat for every American family, for the 17 million Americans who are over 65, whose means of support, whose livelihood is certainly lessened over what it was in their working days, who are more inclined to be ill, who are more likely to be in hospitals, who are less able to pay their bills. I think they've suffered a serious setback today.
The president said the forthcoming midterm elections will be a referendum on the program.
I hope that we will return in November a Congress that will support a program like medical care for the aged, which has been fought by the American Medical Association and successfully defeated. This bill will be introduced in January 1963. With your support in November, this bill will pass in 1963.
Only 4 Southern Democrats supported the president's bill, and there were 2 critical defections by non-Southern Democrats, Senator Jennings Randolph of West Virginia and 84-year-old Carl Hayden of Arizona. At today's press conference, the president was asked whether a recent negative poll was cause for concern as the midterm elections approach.
According to Dr. Gallup's latest poll, there's been a sharp rise in pro-Republican sentiment in the Middle West and a opposite drop in your popularity stock of about 10 points. Do you have any explanation of your own for this phenomenon, if it is one, and does it bother you with the administration facing now your election?
Well, I think that it said we dropped personally from, I think, 79% to 69%. I think that if I was still 79% after a very intense congressional session, I would feel that I had not met my responsibilities. The American people are rather evenly divided on a great many issues. And as I make my views clearer on these issues, then of course some people increasingly are not going to approve of me, so that I dropped to 69% and will probably drop some more. I don't think there's any doubt that by President Eisenhower, I think in the November election of 1954 was down to 58%. But he survived, and I suppose I will. Now, as to the congressional drop, I thought it was abnormal in the winter before the Congress began. I think what the American people have to understand is that the Republican Party, by and large, with very few exceptions, have opposed every measure that we have put forward, whether it's in agriculture, whether it's in medical care, whether it's in urban affairs, and they have been joined by some Democrats who, for a great many years, have opposed a good many Democratic programs. We lost Medicare, change in 2 votes would have won it, and the House, change of 10 votes would have passed our farm bill. That's why this election in November is a very important one. If the American people are against these programs, then of course they'll vote Republican. And we will have a state of where the president believes one thing and the Congress another for 2 years, and we'll have inaction. And there are those who believe that that's what we should have. I do not. Fortunately, the American people will have a choice, and they will choose, as I have said, to either put anchor down or to sail. So we'll see in November.
Today's press conference was broadcast simultaneously here and in Europe by Telstar, the communications satellite built by AT&T's Bell Laboratories and launched by NASA on July 10th. Europeans also viewed live shots of the Statue of Liberty and part of a baseball game between the Chicago Cubs and the Philadelphia Phillies.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have just been informed that this baseball game is being seen in Europe right now over the Telstar satellite. Let's give all the baseball fans in Europe a big hello from Chicago.
Live shots of the game, which was played this afternoon at Wrigley Field but viewed in Europe this evening, appeared with perfect clarity on European TV sets. Whether the game was fully understood, however, was an open question.
Well, we realize that all of this doesn't make much sense to you folks in Europe, but if we hadn't shown you a bit of our national game on this first transatlantic show, we'd never have heard the end of it. As a matter of fact, right now, our colleagues who are doing the translating are going crazy trying to say runs, hits, and errors in Swedish and Italian. In any case, here it is, a brief glimpse of American baseball played in the biggest arena in the world, all the way from Wrigley Field in Chicago to the Coliseum in Rome.
The Cubs won the game 5-3. On Thursday, Dr. Martin Luther King became the first American Negro to address a national press club in Washington, D.C. Dr. King had just been released from jail in Albany, Georgia against his will after serving 2 days of a 45-day sentence. He had been convicted of leading a demonstration without a permit and had refused to pay the fine, declaring the law and the court unjust.
Reverend Abernathy and I were notified that some unknown donor had paid our fines and that we had to leave the jail. We have now reached a new landmark in race relations. We have witnessed persons being ejected from lunch counters during the sit-ins and thrown into jails during the freedom rides. But for the first time, we witnessed persons being kicked out of jail.
Albany Police Chief Lori Pritchett said he did not know who had paid Dr. King's fine. On Friday, Federal District Judge Robert Elliott, at the request of Albany city officials, handed down a restraining order barring further demonstrations in the city. Attorneys representing Dr. King and other Negro leaders have filed a petition challenging the constitutionality of that order. This week, James Gray, editor of the Albany Herald, made a statement on local television strongly criticizing Dr. King and the Albany movement. Mr. Gray singled out for special condemnation the use of Negro children in the demonstrations.
It has caused the parents of these children to realize that they are branded for life. This, to my mind, is a despicable manipulation, and it is as phony as Martin Luther King's comfortable martyrdom when he deliberately seeks jail as a mark of distinction.
Yesterday, Dr. King stated that he and other Negro leaders would obey Judge Elliott's restraining order while the matter is being adjudicated. At the same time, Dr. King continued to chastise President Kennedy for what he called a lack of moral leadership on civil rights. At today's press conference, the president was asked about Dr. King's criticism.
Dr. Martin Luther King said yesterday that you could do more in the area of moral persuasion by occasionally speaking out against segregation and counseling the nation on the moral aspects of this problem.
I've made it very clear that I'm for every American citizen having his constitutional rights, and the United States government under this administration has taken a whole variety of very effective steps to improve the equal opportunities for all Americans, and will continue to do so.
The president's brother, Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy, is also being petitioned by Dr. King to be more assertive on civil rights. Today, the minister sent the Attorney General a telegram informing him that a 29-year-old Negro mother had been knocked unconscious and kicked multiple times by 2 policemen in Mitchell County, Georgia. Dr. King identified the woman as Marion King, to whom he is not related. Mrs. King, wife of Slater King, a leader in the Albany movement, was interviewed today at her home.
I arrived at Camilla, Georgia about 5 o'clock along with 2 other ladies to take some clothing to their children who were in jail there. We were told that it was too late to take any clothing, so we walked around to the side of the fence to look up to see if we could see any of the children. As we were standing at the fence, we were approached by a policeman who told us to move on and asked what we were staring at in a very nasty tone. Then he came out of the yard, and a second policeman said, you'd better do what he says, and you'd better hurry up, we're going to lock you up. And I turned and said, well, I'm ready to go now. In the meantime, I was being shoved along with my baby girl in my arms. At this time, I was kicked from behind by the second policeman and struck from in front by the first one. And I think momentarily I was unconscious because I understand that I fell on top of the baby.
You are expecting another child, are you not?
Yes, I'm 5.5 months pregnant.
In his telegram to the Attorney General, Dr. King requested, quote, prosecution of the guilty parties in Mitchell County under the Federal Police Brutality Act, unquote. The Mitchell County Sheriff could not be reached for comment. At the press club, Dr. King discussed his philosophy of nonviolent civil disobedience.
The nonviolent resistors can summarize their message in the following simple terms. We will take direct action against injustice without waiting for other agencies to act. We will not obey unjust laws or submit to unjust practices. We will try to persuade with our words, but if our words fail, we will try to persuade with our acts. We will always be willing to talk and seek fair compromise, but we are ready to suffer when necessary and even risk our lives to become witnesses to the truth as we see it.
He went on to link the civil rights movement with the basic principles of the American dream.
We feel that we are the conscience of America. We are its troubled soul. We are simply seeking to bring into full realization the American dream, a dream yet unfulfilled, a dream of equality of opportunity, of privilege and property widely distributed, a dream of a land where men no longer argue that the color of a man's skin determines the content of his character. The dream of a land where every man will respect the dignity and the worth of human personality. This is a dream, and when it is realized, the jangling discords of our nation will be transformed into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood, and men everywhere will know that America is truly the land of the free and the home of the brave.
I'll have more news for you after this message.
Here's Paul Hornung, place kicking. One of the great stars on Post football trading cards.
Trading cards are free on Post Sugar Crisp. Lots of them on all Post cereals. 200 top stars with facts you'd like to know. Start collecting football trading cards now. Free on all Post cereals.
Here again, Joe Rubenstein.
In the desert west of Cairo Saturday, Egyptian President Gamal Abdel Nasser observed the test firing of several new rockets by the armed forces of the United Arab Republic. When asked what the rockets were to be used for, President Nasser asked in response, "What is the purpose of a rocket?" He then said that Israel was within range of the rockets, which can travel 400 miles. Israeli officials were less bothered by Nasser's rockets than by other reports indicating that the United Arab Republic has recently acquired MiG-21 fighters and Tu-16 bombers from the Soviet Union. The Soviet jets could deliver far more devastating payloads than the rockets. In related news, the Arab-Israeli conflict has extended into the world of Hollywood filmmaking. This week, the United Arab Republic refused to grant Elizabeth Taylor an entry visa because she had converted to Judaism and supports Zionist causes. Richard Burton, Ms. Taylor's co-star in the film Cleopatra, arrived in Cairo this week to shoot outdoor scenes for the film. Today, Mr. Burton said that if Ms. Taylor is not permitted to join the production there, the scenes would be filmed elsewhere. The U.S. Army's Nike Zeus defense missile intercepted a ballistic missile today in a test high over the Marshall Islands in the Pacific. A Pentagon spokesman said that the U.S. was not aware of a similar achievement by the Soviets. Even so, Pentagon officials emphasized the controlled conditions of today's test and remain doubtful of the defense missile's effectiveness in a real nuclear attack involving a large number of ballistic missiles. The Soviet Union has scheduled a new series of nuclear tests for August. At today's press conference, President Kennedy was asked if he held out any hope for an agreement on a test ban treaty after the new Soviet series is completed.
Well, the tests that we carried out were due to the breach of the moratorium by the Soviet Union last fall. We will have to make an analysis of their tests and see whether they present a further risk to our security. We will therefore have to wait. I'm sorry the Soviet Union is testing. They broke the agreement, tested in last fall. We tested in response. Now they carry out another series of tests, and the world plunges deeper into uncertainty.
The president was asked about direct communication with his Soviet counterpart, Nikita Khrushchev.
Mr. President, are you making any progress toward a direct telephone line to Mr. Khrushchev for use in case of emergency?
We have not done that, no. We have communications with the Soviet Union. I think the problem is not, at the present time, communications. The problem is that there's a difference of viewpoint. We understand each other, but we differ.
Meanwhile, Moscow has stepped up its criticism of the continued presence of U.S. forces at the Guantanamo Naval Base in Cuba. The base has been leased to the U.S. since 1903. This week, the Soviet Defense Ministry called Guantanamo, quote, the biggest base of North American imperialism in Latin America, unquote. The statement went on to claim the U.S. is, quote, seeking to reactivate its subversive activity against Cuba. But these attempts will not succeed. Revolutionary Cuba, which has the sympathy of all peace-loving people, is ready to give the aggressors the rebuff they deserve, unquote. Sports, right after this.
Driving off a 10-story building is exactly the same as crashing at 60 miles an hour. Remember that when you go 60. We at Mobil are here to sell gasoline and oil. And we want you to be here to try them. We want you to live.
In Cooperstown, New York today, Jackie Robinson, Bob Feller, Ed Rausch, and Bill McKechnie were inducted into the National Baseball Hall of Fame. Mr. Robinson, now 43, became Major League Baseball's first Negro player in 1947.
I feel quite inadequate here this afternoon. I never thought at all that I would have this wonderful honor coming to me so early in my lifetime. And to have the writers to elect me on the first time is a thrill that I shall never forget. We have been up in cloud nine since the election. I don't ever think I'll come down. But I want to thank all of the people throughout this country who were just so wonderful during those trying days. And I only hope that I'll be able to live up to this tremendously fine honor. It's something that I think those of us who are fortunate again must use in order to help others. I'm just grateful, and I'm sorry it's taken so long, but I just wanted you to know I appreciate it so much. Thank you.
As for current baseball action, two clubs whose rivalry survived transplantation to the West Coast are shaping up as the primary contenders in this year's National League pennant race. With both Los Angeles and San Francisco victorious tonight, the first-place Dodgers maintain a one-game lead over the Giants. Tonight, the Dodgers battered the Cardinals in St. Louis 9-2. Southpaw Johnny Padres scattered 9 hits in gaining his 6th victory of the year. Speedy shortstop Maury Wills hit a 3-run homer. And Frank Howard, the Dodgers' towering right fielder, slammed his 17th homer of the season, a 2-run shot. Meanwhile, in sweltering Houston, Texas, Willie Mays and Orlando Cepeda powered the Giants to a 5-1 victory over the Colts. Mays homered and doubled, while Cepeda made 3 hits, including 2 doubles. Mays now leads the league with 29 home runs. Last Sunday, the San Francisco Star sped from a doubleheader at the Polo Grounds to the CBS TV studio on West 54th Street for an appearance on the popular show What's My Line? On the program, blindfolded celebrity panelists question and try to identify the mystery guest. Actress Arlene Francis, a lifelong Giants fan, was quick to identify Mays. Another baseball fan on the panel, writer and publisher Bennett Cerf, seized the opportunity to ask Mays about the National League race.
Willie, do you think you're going to catch the Dodgers?
We're trying. I don't know.
Pretty tough. They got a pretty tough pitching staff, haven't they?
Very much so. They have a lot of speed and a lot of pitching.
Who do you think is better, Koufax or Drysdale?
Well, I haven't hit either one this year, so I don't know.
You will.
For now, at least, Mays has only Don Drysdale to worry about. Sandy Koufax was sidelined 2 weeks ago after developing numbness in the index finger of his pitching hand during an outing against the Mets. The southpaw will not be allowed to throw again until early August. In the American League, the defending world champion Yankees are starting to put some daylight between themselves and the contenders. The Los Angeles Angels now trail the Bombers by 2.5 games, the Minnesota Twins by 4.5. And that, for this evening, completes our look at the latest news on this Monday, July 23rd, 1962. Thank you for joining us, and have a great day tomorrow.
This has been your Evening Report, a roundup of the latest news with Joe Rubenstein.